Paved the way. Welcome back as we study the history leading up to the coming of the Messiah, and also how God used history to his purposes. The Persian Empire came into existence through the efforts of one man, Cyrus. We know nothing of his background other than his father's name was Cambyses, but the ancestry of his mother is unknown. Tradition has it that she was related to a Median king, which gave him credence as a monarch, but that is tradition. Cyrus first appears on the scene in 559 BC at the age of 40, and he inherited a small kingdom. You'll notice it's on the map with a red star, called Anshan. It was a tributary of the Median Empire, and one of the rivals of Babylon. Recall we left Babylon as being a pretty powerful place when we last met, and they were opposed to this kingdom and obviously to Cyrus. Nabonidus was the unpopular king of Babylon at this time. He was a philosopher, a mystic, and he felt Marduk to ask him to restore the temple of the moon god Sin at Haran. And when he protested the proximity of the Medes, that was a big mistake, because that set in motion his downfall. He found that this was the beginning of his defeat because of, as we'll talk about, the powerful Cyrus. And in 550 to 549 BC, Cyrus revolted against his Median overlord, and here he is now independent down there in that little kingdom. And at the same time, Nabonidus turned the kingdom of Babylon over to his son, Belshazzar. Now, if you remember the book of Daniel, that name appears. The Babylonians marched against Cyrus, and I find this humorous, but the army deserted and went over on Cyrus's side. Now, there was something about Cyrus that I'm not sure that we have preserved accurately, but people loved him, and Astyages decided to personally fund another army and attack Cyrus. Same thing happened. The army deserted, but this time they turned their leader over to Cyrus, and that was not a good thing. We know Cyrus was a very generous conqueror. He did plunder the wealth of the captive nations, but he spared the cities. He didn't destroy cities. He didn't go in and wreak havoc on what was there. He kept the officials in their posts, and I'm sure this came about as, hey, this guy is in our favor. Cyrus now held claim to Assyria, Mesopotamia, Syria, Armenia, and Cappadocia. And other than Cyrus, now there's only three other great powers, and Cyrus proceeded to subdue Lydia, Babylonia, and Cyrus's son, Cambyses, then proceeded to conquer Egypt. We're going to talk in the next lesson more about the issues Cyrus had with Egypt and how his son was able to go into Egypt and take it. With the capture of these kingdoms, Cyrus was in a close proximity to the Greek cities of Asia Minor. Now, Cyrus demanded the surrender of the coastal cities. He was a warrior, and they refused. And so he proceeded to conquer them one by one. Greece was more of a city-state at this point than they were a nation. And except for Athens, they were very localized, and it was a small effort for a large army to go in and just take them. The city of Miletus submitted to him without a fight. The priest of Apollo actually sided with him. Uh, and, and so there was something about this man. I'm not too sure that we have adequately understood it. Everybody loved him. And it was inevitable that there had to be a showdown with the mainland Greece. And we're going to talk about that later. About 100 years later, I love to understand how it came about in what's called the Battle of Thermopylae. 300 Spartan warriors led by King Leonidas. We'll get to that one later, but just mark your spot there and we'll come back to it. And after the fall of Babylon, to the Persian king Cyrus the Great was in 538 BC, the exiled Jews were permitted to return to the land of Judah. Now this is a major piece to the puzzle, putting Israel back together for the time of Christ. King Cyrus the Great ended the exile of these people in 537, and the year after he conquered Babylonia, he granted permission to return and rebuild the temple, the second temple, 521 to 516, under Zerubbabel. They were not returning to rebuild the nation, just to rebuild that temple. The exiles, the return of the exiles was a gradual process. It wasn't in mass. It was over time, and they came in droves, in small amounts. And rather than a single event, many of the deportees and their descendants did not return at all. The best guess is that 50,000 Jews returned over the course of several years, but then as many as 2 million Jews remained under their own decision in Babylon. So also remember, the northern tribe had no return. So we've got the 2 southern tribes that are returning, and that's all that came back. In 456 BC, Ezra comes to Babylon expressly to teach the law. And about 10 years later, Nehemiah comes to Jerusalem to rebuild the walls to the city. In 440 BC, the book of Malachi was written, and he is the last of the prophets. You'll look on that paper I offered you last time. If you didn't get it, you can click on a link, and I'll put that again in the comments. My little work paper that keeps the kings and the prophets straight. But Malachi was the last. And it's called, erroneously, the 400 years of silence. We're going to have a lesson on that later. But until that time, I'm going to dig into this much deeper on the next one. And I hope that you get as much excitement out of it as I do in thinking back to how history played out at the hands of men and used by Jehovah God to bring us the Messiah. God bless you in your studies. I hope you are blessed by all that God has done for you.